All right, it's 11 o'clock, and I like it when people get started on time, so we're going to get started on time, also because I'm probably going to use every last second of whatever time that they did give me. So my name is Cliff, and one of the rules of doing a presentation well is that no one actually cares about the person that's presenting by the time they're actually presenting, so I'm not going to give you a bunch of irrelevant information about myself, but what I will do is set this up a little bit with why this is important to me. So I work at a company called Pardot. We do B2B marketing automation, which is sexier than it sounds, actually. But when I started there, thank you so much. When I started there about 2.5 years ago, we were a startup. Very traditional kind of startup. Cool place to work. We won Best Place to Work in Georgia every year that we were eligible for it, pretty much. We were always in the paper riding scooters or wearing firemen's hats and other ridiculous stuff that are associated with working at a startup. I started there then. Now, we've actually been acquired twice. The second time was by Salesforce, which is one of the largest software companies in the world. So as you can imagine, things have changed a little bit, especially when it comes to scale, how many people we're working with, the type of thing that we're doing, and how many people we can help. I was the first person dedicated to user experience at Pardot when I started there. And now we've grown to having an entire team, working with another massive team in San Francisco, doing all kinds of things. Things have changed in scale pretty drastically. But the one thing that has not changed is why I love going to work every morning and why this kind of thing matters. And that's because I'm going to defend some cheesy statements that I'm going to make today. But one of the things that's true is that I get to be in charge of reducing the amount of sanity-draining tasks that people have to complete each day in order to get to the actual thing that they wanted to do when they came to work that day. Okay? They did not come to work to open up Excel. They did not come to work to write a formula. They came to work to do some cool stuff with whatever that formula will do on the other end of that grunt work. That's true for all of us, no matter how creative or not creative we think ourselves to be. We did not wake up in the morning to open up an application on a computer and get excited about actually inputting something on a keyboard. We get excited about other things. And so what I get to do is find a way to reduce all of those little bitty moments, no matter what. And that's awesome. And so what we can say, if that's the case, is that user experience actually reduces human suffering. And it's cheesy, it's tiny, it's dramatic, but it's true. And those are the things I'm talking about. And yes, it is suffering to open up Excel. It's suffering to open up software, even if it's cool. It's this little bit of thing that gets in the way of us doing the thing that we actually want to do. And we're not reducing human suffering on a global scale or disregarding it to say that those tiny moments are suffering, that they're getting in the way of us trying to do what it is that we actually want to do. And so even though that's the case, and even though it feels dramatic, and even though it's weird to say, and you definitely don't want to go back to work next week and start talking about this verbatim, all bosses will laugh. Don't do that, okay? But since that's true, it's cool because doing this and reducing the human suffering on the small scale for normal people every day has this really neat side effect of actually meeting business goals, which is cool because that's kind of the reason that people let people like me talk about UX anyway, is because we can find a way to help it map to business goals. And if we can't map it to business goals, it's just a distraction. It's useless. It's useless for someone like me to sit in rooms and say, that's not quite good enough because it takes a little too long. It's a little too complicated. It takes a few too many things that I have to remember in order to do that. Nah, it's not necessary. Okay, if I can't map what we're doing, better design, better concepts, if we can't map that to business goals, it's useless and it's not helpful to anybody, and we shouldn't blame anybody for thinking that way at all. But we can do that, and I'm going to show you several ways today, and I'm going to show you statistics, even though one of the points is that statistics aren't something you have to focus on anymore. I'll still show you statistics that will help you understand how these kinds of focuses can actually help us do the things that we want to do, make people's lives better, and meet business goals. So studies have shown that implementing a customer experience focus increases a willingness to buy more products, reluctance to switch brands, and likelihood of recommendation of that product by 15% each, okay? That's a focus on a customer experience. And another case study described how a large financial services company implemented a user-centered strategy on their customer-facing website. And all of these statistics that we're kind of going to go through here, I mean, this comes from an approach that the company designed or identifies as user-centered. And when we step back and think, we should do things better for the people that we're already doing things for already, it's kind of a ridiculous thing to think about. It's weird to say we ought to do the things better that we're already doing just better for the people that we should already be focusing on because we're already focusing on them, but instead we're going to focus more. Lots of neat nuances that happen in a board meeting, right, at 10:30 in the morning when you're trying to say stuff like that and it doesn't make sense. But these stats come from companies identifying as, okay, we took this strategy, we took this approach, and we decided this time we're going to actually focus on the people that we were focusing on anyway, but not quite enough. And so you see this kind of stuff, right? You see upselling being able to go up by 15%. You see usage of a product being able to go up by 30%. You see churn go down 18%. Errors go down, complexity go down. And those things at the bottom, especially errors and complexity, those might not always sound sexy to designers, but that maps very seriously to your ability to save money, save resources, and work on more of the things that you actually want to work on. And so just to be clear as well, we're not just talking about software today, even though I'll probably reference a product and things like that out of habit. Everything that we do and everything that we work with is just a combination of content and then the presentation of that content. Okay? If it's data in an application, that's the content. We're figuring out how to help people surface that content, manipulate it, get the information and insight they want to out of it, and different things like that. This maps directly to whether you're blogging each day in order to help someone learn something because you want them to engage with your content and things like that. So we're not just talking about products, we're not just talking about startups or anything like that. So don't feel like we're left behind with that. All of this maps to the same idea, okay? And so the sort of established, concept here, and probably that everyone would agree, that we're going to have to find a way, if we want to focus on design, if we want to make things better, that we're going to have to be able to come up with outcomes that are similar to this, that make people happy about the fact that we're spending time thinking about a concept that feels fluffy, that feels a little silly, that doesn't always map to something directly, and we need to come up with stuff like this. And so one of the things about this situation, and one of the reasons I really love talking about this, is that we're entering this phase now, and it seems like it's happened in the last couple of years, where companies are willing to start talking about design. They're starting to think about experiences. Design is starting to get this little bit of a spotlight in the economy, and people are really starting to think on a corporate level, how can we actually understand an experience that a customer is going through from beginning to end? How can we know what it feels like to be them? How can we make that better? How can someone prove to me that making it better will make it better for us? How can we find that it's worth it at all? And so the cool thing about that is that often that starts with someone kind of far up your chain, so to speak, or if you're small, 1 or 2 steps above you, kind of saying one day, okay, I'm willing to think about this. I'm willing to consider that we have enough bandwidth to kind of feel out whether really focusing on this and honestly just spending time thinking instead of writing or coding, just spending time thinking, I'm willing to consider that maybe if we do this, it can make things better. And it's cool because people like me get the opportunity at that point to completely deconstruct that entire approach and thought process. Because it's not just at that point, usually what's on the mind is, okay, we've got a lot of gradients here, and we should probably make it flatter, right? That'll probably do it. We're using Times New Roman, and we really need to increase user experience by using Proxima Nova. Like, let's really peel this back, and let's make the UX better by, minimizing things. I hear that we can do things simpler, so let's take the navigation, and then let's actually put it off the screen entirely, and then put a 3-line icon in front of it so that you got to click it to get to the thing that you're wanting to click on already, except now we hid it from you because that's good design. And like different stuff like that, right? And so people like me get to kind of deconstruct this whole concept and say, actually, that has almost nothing to do with this premise at all. Those are neat. Sometimes those are side effects. I do like that font. I do hate the hamburger icon, and I will cry about it all weekend. Side note, if you want to talk about that, I will show you some studies. I will argue, seriously, I will argue all weekend about that. Point of that being, that's where we kind of start. That's where the door opens for people. So we're willing to consider making things a little bit different. Maybe it'll improve things. And we can go and we can deconstruct this entire concept. And people like me can actually say in a meeting dressed like this, because you should take me seriously, is what if instead we focused on making people's lives better? And what if that had nothing to do with a font? And what if that had nothing to do with flatness or gradients or hamburger icons or anything like that? And what if we didn't have to hijack the concept of user experience and hijack the concept of making someone's experience with our product better in order to meet business goals? What if we didn't have to sit and have this conversation about, okay, he's willing to take the time to consider making design better, or she is, or whatever, and so let's just try. Let's take what we can get here. Let's make the design a little bit better, and I can be a little less embarrassed around people who work in my industry, and we can improve things a little bit. But what if we didn't actually have to hijack that concept at all? And maybe we could actually say that focusing on actually making people's lives better, that kind of neat side effect that we discussed at the beginning, that it's really hard to bring up and that honestly no one really cares about, which is fine because their job is tied to business success, not to making people's lives better, or at least that's what they think, right? But what if you didn't have to hijack that concept, and what if you could say that actually focusing on making people's lives better will actually get you better business results than focusing on the business results and hoping that that results in making people's lives better? What if we could actually go all the way in and really invest in this whole thing and just say, you know what, professionally, I just make people better. I make things better for people, and I get to care about that because I can actually demonstrate that it will make the difference and things like that. So it's neat because what I can propose to you today is the best way to meet business goals is to forget them entirely. Okay? That the best way to meet business goals is to actually focus on people instead, to proudly announce in a meeting that you're going to put people over the pixels that are involved in your software, that are involved in your blog design, that are involved in whatever else you're involved in, and we're just going to completely forget the thing at the bottom, and we're going to go straight to the thing at the top. And we're just going to say, what makes people better? What makes people's lives better? And things like that. And so I do hope to equip you today as well with some data. I'll be showing data all along the way, so you don't think this is some frou-frou thing that I came up with that I'm pitching to you to make you feel better about yourself. I'm honestly not here for that. What I would rather do is equip you with a way to feel better about yourself and what you do, because you have the power to make a significant difference in the lives of people and help your business thrive, because sure as hell there are a lot of people who are not doing well. Design is not great. We are increasing the amount of sanity-draining tasks that people have to do because we're injecting our product in the middle of something. And the thing is that that something is people's lives, and we forget about it because we work with it. So when we can do this, when we can follow through with the notion that we actually already know our customer's pain and that we can solve it, okay? Because that's what you're doing when you're selling something, or you're writing something, or you're doing anything where you're asking people to invest time and money. You're saying, I know that you have a problem. I'm an expert on solving this problem. And so here's a solution for you. Here's content. Here's a product. Here's a service. Here's something. You pay me, I'm going to solve this problem for you. You don't have to deal with this problem anymore. And that's the nature of this exchange, and so you already know it. But instead of being afraid of saying, I'm the expert and I can help you, you can actually dive further into it and get really personal with it, learn a lot more, and do a lot better. And so this way we can actually stop bending user experience design practices, best practices, and whatever you read elsewhere, research methodology. We can stop bending it to our will in order to make it fit into business goals. And instead we can dive further into it, and we'll show that it actually does help meet business goals. So let me make the case here, and I think you'll see where I'm going pretty quickly, okay? So there's a little bit of nuance to this, but most people would agree. So it's much more efficient to sell to market to people who are already existing customers, already existing people who have interchanged with value in your brand, in your website, in your product, and things like that, right? Does anyone disagree with that, at least in general? Cool. I haven't met anyone who does so far, but you have the chance. And so it's much more efficient to work with that existing user base when it comes to a product than it is to acquire new customers and things like that. And so we know that. And so, if you have a product that is paid for on a monthly or yearly basis, you aim to reduce churn by engaging with these people. You want to keep them happy. Maybe you're selling complementary products or you're pitching additional content or something like that. You're working with this existing base of people who are happy and you want to keep making them happy, and you want to make them happy so they never want to leave and they never want to stop engaging with what you're doing. They never want to stop spending money or anything like that. That's a really common way to do things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, and that's customer loyalty. That's what Seth Godin has brought into the fray as a tribe. Okay, that's brand advocates. That's all this ridiculous stuff. And remind me later to make a really sarcastic comment about brand engagement. But I'm going to save that for you. So if I don't do that, just I don't throw something at me. But these are the people that we fight for, and these are the people that they're good with us. Okay, if they're happy, they're paying money, they're reading content, something like that. We're good together, and we should keep it that way. Okay, and according to at least one report, you can monetize loyal customers 2.4 times more than people who identify as not loyal. So here's where the tweak happens, okay? That's loyal according to the customer. That's the perception of loyalty to you, not your perception of their loyalty to you, okay? So that's where it starts, where you've got to learn how to start getting behind the eyes of the other people. So loyal actually happens in someone else's brain, not in yours. And so that's point one, where you can begin to disassociate yourself from what you perceive your product to be, which doesn't matter, okay? And start understanding what it means to be perceived on the other end of things, right? Okay, so how do we get there? And how do we understand what it means to be perceived as a company worth being loyal to? How do we understand what it means to be helpful, to be a problem solver to people, to be reliable and things like that? So Kathy Sierra, who's a genius, Kathy with a K, okay, says, the model for sustaining customer loyalty is reverse engineering user awesomeness, okay? The model for sustaining customer loyalty is reverse engineering user awesomeness, okay? Now, what does she mean? It means that we focus on making people awesome instead of making the tools that we sell them awesome. Okay? It's really subtle, but it's a crucial change in the way that you think about design and the way that you think about experience. And it's crucial to doing what we talked about, where if you focus on people, you get the business results. You have to start there. The tool doesn't matter, and we'll keep talking about it. The reason we feel like the tool matters, the reason why we feel like the product, the brand, the company matters, is because you go into the office every day. You wear the company t-shirt, you do the meetups, you talk about your company, you have the business cards. It's a part of you. It's not a part of anyone else. No one else cares. If your company disappeared tomorrow, they would find another one, because it's the problem. It's not the company, okay? If the solution is best, then that's great. And there's nuance to that, but for the most part, like, people are looking to solve their own problems. They don't care whether you exist or not, okay? And so we think about it, but we get so ingrained in our minds that our product is important. Our product is the best way to do things. Our product, our concept, our content is the best. So we've got to keep telling people that. It might be, it might not be, but that's what you got to do to go to work every day, right? But so does everybody else. So let me give you an example. When someone wants to hang a picture on a wall, okay? Basic, hanging a picture on a wall. They need the picture, which we're going to assume in this example already exists, okay? They're going to hang a picture on the wall. They already have the picture. They need a hammer, and they need a nail to put the things in the wall to hang the picture, okay? The hammer might have Bluetooth and might track your fitness level and however many times you did this. And it might sync to your phone. And you might be able to tweet, I only had to hammer 4 times in order to get that nail in the wall. That's really neat, okay? Perhaps the nail is organic and grass-fed, and people feel very good about it. Perhaps the hammer had a name and was cared for during its lifetime. That's all great. But people are not actually buying a hammer or a nail in that scenario. It actually doesn't matter, because what they're buying is the picture hanging on the wall properly once it's done. They're actually buying the moment where instead of hanging the picture on the wall, or putting the nail in, or getting the hammer, buying the thing, they're actually buying this moment where you stand back and look at it, and you go, well, that's what I was trying to do. Very cool, right? You're paying for that moment. You're not paying for the privilege of hammering a nail into a wall, okay? And so what people are doing is they're buying tools that help them get to the moment that they want to get to. They're thinking of the moment. We do this as well. Just because we're in this room, or we might be involved with design, or we might be writing things, whatever, doesn't mean we're excluded from this concept. It's just hard for us to remember that our product is just a hammer or a nail in the process, because we're emotionally invested in it, just like the hammer or nail manufacturer would feel about their fancy hammer or nail. They don't want to feel like they're irrelevant, but you are. You are. Okay? And so people are buying this moment. They're buying the success of being able to do the thing that they want to do. The thing is, tools that help you get the outcome that you want become part of this streamline that creates loyalty. Because if after I have hung the picture on the wall and I feel very good about the picture hanging on the wall, the picture looks great, I feel like it was done effortlessly, the hammer and nail were affordable, what I needed was there, I got it easily, I was able to accomplish the task I came to do, now I'm looking at it, I feel good, I'm pretty loyal to that hammer and nail at that point. Why? It wasn't really in my way. It helped me get to where I was going. It doesn't stick out as a problem to me, but instead I feel very good about it. And in fact, a lot of why I feel good about it is the fact that I feel like I hung that picture on a wall like a boss. That was one of the best pictures I've ever hung on a wall before. That picture is super straight. It's very good. I did not hit an electrical line with a nail, which I've done before. I didn't do anything. I didn't tear down the wall. It wasn't like rotten drywall that started falling apart. Things were in there well. Things are looking good. It's at the right height. There are not additional nail holes in there. The whole process was super easy, and now I feel like a boss who can hang pictures for anybody. And that's the thing. Like, loyalty is created at that moment where you're stepping back and you're looking at the picture and you're feeling like you did great. You're then loyal to that process because it went off without a hitch. It's exactly what you were looking for. It makes you really happy. And so trying to understand that about people, right? It tends to lead us beyond the paradigm of things like user personas and things like that. Are people generally familiar with personas in the room? Just nod or something. I see bouncing heads, that'll work. And so, for instance, personas are very good and they're very useful. They're neat, they're these let's create kind of an archetype of an average person that we think sort of represents the values of the types of people that we're doing things for, and then we'll put in a nice presentation. So they're good and they're very useful in their point, but we have overextended them. And even if you're not a user experience designer in the room or specifically working with personas, this has had something to do with the type of design that your deal is experiencing, okay? Because even if you don't document it, you often have a mental persona of people, or your boss does. This is what the average person is like. By the way, the average user is the only person that you know for a fact does not actually exist. You completely made that individual up. That's literally the one person you know is not using your product. So let's average everyone together and build it for the one person who will never buy it, right? So point is, though, they were never meant to be a blueprint for building something and for helping us figure out how to get to the right people, okay? They're a tool in the process, and they're helpful, okay? And I'm not going to pitch frameworks to you today and things like that because, honestly, I think frameworks should just work for people. If it works for you, do it, okay? But I want to give an example. So this is like a common way that we can kind of talk about personas. And this is like a traditional user story, which is generally we take a persona, the average person that we know doesn't exist, and then we throw them into a user story. And so this is kind of a general outline of the way that this actually works most of the time. So as a persona, as an average person that we know doesn't exist, I want to do this thing so that I can get the expected outcome that I want, okay? As a marketer, I want to use this branded Bluetooth hammer so that I can hang the picture on the wall. And we make a ton of assumptions, front-loading the sentence that drives the way that we design everything. We make tons of assumptions. First of all, as a thing, as a persona, it doesn't even matter unless key components within that has to do with your ability or inability to hang a picture on a wall, okay? This kind of information does not matter. And this structure makes so many assumptions that we end up completely riding off of our own assumptions, which we're already established. We're emotionally involved in the process. And so one of the key things that we're trying to do here, whether we mean to or not, is we're forcing our product to sit in the middle of the story of the average person that doesn't exist. So we say, as a person who doesn't exist, I want to use my product to get to the end goal. All of that is made up. All of it is manufactured, and it's completely impersonal, okay? And when we start with the product and we do that, we're like proof texting our way back out of stories. And we're assuming that because we've built something well, because we're writing good content and whatever else, it's an integral part of the story. That's what I was saying before. When you work with a company, there's nothing wrong with this, okay? It happens. When you're working at a company, you're working on a thing. You're building an idea. You're doing all this. You have to believe that it's the best, right? And if you don't, like, you should go get another job, probably. That's not good. But like, we start with that and we go there. The problem is that we overextend that concept too, and we force everything to be built off that notion when it is a very real possibility that you are not the best solution to the problem. And even if you are, that you might not even know who you're solving it for, because you're making up an average situation in your head and imagining yourself fitting into it. Again, all of this is manufactured in our heads. We don't really know what's happening. And so we base it all on these assumptions. And so instead of starting with a product and demanding that it's a part of the solution and then creating personas for people that we think it solves it for, we can actually move out of this and move more into something like this. A guy named Alan Clement came up with this concept and calls it a job story. Again, I don't care about frameworks, okay? But this is a good example to help us understand how we can sort of shake some of these notions of all the assumptions that we walk into situations with, okay? And here we can focus on empowering the user, and we can assume a lot less. And we can run down from the macro needs of the user all the way down to specific tasks and things like that. You'll notice that the expected outcome stays the same, because even if you're building a hammer or a nail, you probably know that someone wants to hang a picture on a wall. Okay, that's fine. But instead of coming up with an average type of person who would use a hammer or a nail, and then saying my product must fit into it, so this is how I'm going to accomplish it, you can instead say, look, I don't know about types of people. I don't even know if we're the right solution. What we want to do instead is say, if we know the expected outcome, okay, what's the situation that this is happening in, and what's the motivation? Okay? When I live in a home, I want to hang, I want to look at a picture that's on my wall so that, I don't know, so that other people can see it, so that I can look at it. You know, when I move into a home, I want to hang pictures around my house so that I can look at them because they make me feel good. And you kind of start brainstorming around this concept, and it starts making more sense the more you talk about it. Because one of the things is you realize that with personas, with average people, we've been assuming that we have a lot more in common with the type of people who have similar demographic and sociographic data to us than we do people who just have similar motivations. But that's kind of the funny thing, right? Because like, you don't make friends, for instance, by saying, similar age, similar nationality. Where are you from again? Okay, similar nationality, okay. What's your like income level? Okay. How many kids? Okay. No, not friends. You don't actually do that, right? Instead, you end up making friends because, and this is what happens, right, when you grow up, is you start saying, those people have like different goals in life. We're not aligned. Doesn't make sense. They're not heading in the right direction. You're doing a lot of drugs. That's really neat. You're a neat person. That I don't know. I'm trying to not be poor, and there you are, I don't know. Like, let's maybe be less friends all the time, right? But I mean, this is the sort of thing that happens, and this is how we establish relationships with people. This is how we decide how we're going to spend our lives and who we're going to do life with, is we say, you've got at least similar motivations. Even if you want to be rich and I really don't, at the same time, we both want to do work well. We want to go home. We want to maybe care for our families. I don't know. Maybe we like fishing. We both want to just be able to fish every day. I have no idea why anyone would want to do that every day, but I know that a lot of people do. And like, that's okay, but like, that's how we align motivations. We don't align around demographic data and things like that. And so, you know, when we can actually understand a narrative that's happening, what just occurred? Neat. Don't press that button anymore. Cool. But like, once we understand that there's actually a narrative that is taking place, instead of forcing a narrative upon a situation, we can actually start to understand a lot more. And I'll call this a job story at the beginning because this aligns with what we call a jobs to be done mentality, which is a little bit about the example that I was just giving you, okay? People are hiring your product, people are hiring your content, people are hiring whatever you're working on to help them accomplish a job that needs to be done, okay? They don't really care about your product. They don't really care about it specifically. They care about the outcome. And so we hire it with our time. We hire it with our money and things like that. And we say, we're going to use it for this reason. I was hired at this job to do this. I need this tool to help me get there and do it better so that my boss notices I do well, so maybe I can move up in the chain, or so that I can like get to the design part of what I do better because I don't really want to spend that much time building an email. I want to spend more time exerting my creativity upon that email. I want to see if the creative ways I come up with things can actually help people do better in life. I don't actually care about the email builder itself, right? I care about what happens when the email gets out there and people respond to it. And so when you think about it that way and you allow yourself to emotionally disconnect from forcing your product to be a part of this and you understand people are just using it, you're just a means to an end, okay? Then you can actually understand much better what it means to be a great means to an end, to actually embrace that situation, because our ignorance of being a part of this process like this doesn't make us not a part of that process, okay? The fact that we don't want to accept it, the part that we believe in our product so ardently, doesn't mean it actually matters any more than it does, okay? This is all about getting on the other end, understand what it means to be the customer who is loyal to you because they hired you to accomplish something. What are they trying to accomplish? When? Why? What do they want to do, okay? And so the cool thing is once you embrace this concept and you say, okay, fine, what is the job to be done then? Okay? Once you understand that, then that's what Kathy means by reverse engineering it. So if hanging a picture on the wall is the outcome, and on top of that, successfully hanging a picture on a wall with ease, we can start there and then we say, okay, how do we get there? How does somebody who wants to hang a picture on a wall get to successfully hanging a picture on the wall and actually completely exclude your product from the entire concept to start with so that you can understand it better? Because the truth is your content, your product, whatever else does not have to fit in the middle of that. Every time you force it, you exchange your entire thought process for a lie. Essentially, you're never going to understand how to do it well if you insist that you're a part of it when you're actually not, okay? And so when we have this outlook and we start thinking like this and we understand that we're not a required part of anyone's life because they get to choose to hire us or not, okay? You can begin to do this and they really start revealing themselves, the problem with this whole process. You start relentlessly hunting snags, okay? Obviously, you're not going to go into whatever you work on and say, okay, I've had this wrong the whole time. Let's rebuild. Let's just scrap the whole thing and start over. That's probably not a good idea. Don't do that, okay? Just don't. But what you can do instead is you can start saying, okay. we're at least trying to solve this problem. We're at least a hammer or a nail, okay? We do want to help people get to this point. And yes, we've made a lot of wrong assumptions. So how can we start making right assumptions? How can we start moving in the right direction? How can we start improving things? You hunt snags in the jobs to be done. You start finding the things that are interfering with your product or content's ability to help people get their job done. Okay? You start looking for the ways that you're making it more difficult for people to accomplish the thing that they woke up this morning to accomplish. Okay? And you know, when you start flipping this paradigm on its head, things start making a lot more sense. Okay? And you start really thinking about like, oh God, okay, so people really want to get to that thing in the product and we hit it and it takes 4 clicks to get there because we thought it would look better. And now it takes a long time, it's under something that doesn't make any sense, and then when they get there, they have to click like 4 more times to get to the thing they're trying to get to, and they're doing it because they already pay for it. They're doing it because it's already a part of their workflow, but you're definitely not in a good position to continue to beat competitors when you're making it difficult for people to do the things you want to do. Or bugs, right? Bad design, things like that. I just came to accomplish a task and now I have to remember the 13 steps it takes me to get there. If you are constantly referring people to a knowledge base that has a step-by-step list of instructions in order to get to something in a designed product, maybe reconsider that. Okay? It should be easier for people to get the thing done that they want to get done. And yes, people have different tasks and different goals and things like that, especially in a product. But again, once you start identifying those outcomes, once you start understanding their context and their motivation, you can start designing that better. You can start figuring out how can we help people get these larger jobs done quickly? How can we help them do it more effortlessly? Because the truth is, we talked about opening up Excel in the morning and writing formulas and all of that kind of stuff. But look, I know people who are like, bro, I excel like you would not believe. I do so good at Excel. I am a master of Excel. They feel awesome about Excel. Some of us laugh because that seems crazy to me. It's just a database. I don't know what's going on. But like they get super pumped. Why? Because they can open up Excel and their boss can be like, I need a report on this in like 30 minutes. And everyone else would just like run away crying. And they're like, I got it. And they know exactly what to do, right? Because Excel, the database application, was built for this very purpose. If you know what you're doing, you can run that report and you can get exactly where you're going very quickly, and you can make this really neat looking pie chart that most people have to learn CSS to do, but not you, my friend, because you know Excel, and you can do this whole thing in like 5 minutes. You can even go get coffee, maybe even have a beer at 9:30 in the morning because you just solved that problem like a boss, and you're walking straight into that meeting ready to go because you feel awesome. And that's the concept, is we've got to get people more and more feeling like, okay, my idea here was to run a report, and I'm using this new product, but it is super hard to just like get the report that I need right now. Sometimes that's excusable, but if that's everyone's experience over time, you're doing 2 things. 1, you're making someone's life really miserable. 2, you're setting your entire product up for failure. Because people will come along and make things easier than you're doing because they're focused on the outcome instead of what you're doing, which is focusing maybe on the little minutia, on what people are telling you that you should do, on what your boss's ideas on, and things like that, okay? And to give you a concept, you know, this is hunting snags and bringing them out of the process is where innovation happens. And people love the word innovation anyway, right? Like it's never a bad thing to be called an innovative product. No one really knows what it means, but I will tell you some of what it means. Innovation is peeling away the layers of interaction that it takes to get to the thing you want to get to. When people call things innovative, they're like, that was exactly what I wanted to do and it was really easy, right? Uber is innovative. It's just a taxi service. You already had Uber. The problem was it was super difficult to get someone to show up when you asked them to show up at the right time, charge you the thing that you expected to have, and make it easy for you to pay for all this stuff, right? Jared Spool, who is kind of the godfather of UX at this point, he gives this example about innovation. So you start with newspaper classifieds, right? So you used to want to like buy something from a newspaper. And so the steps in this process are get a newspaper or get a newspaper subscription, wait on it to be delivered to you, take it out of the package, open it up, find the right page for the classifieds, scan the classifieds to find the thing you're looking for, find it, read it, parse it, email, probably phone somebody if it's in the classifieds, call somebody, make the connection, meet up, exchange money, however that works, and then you're kind of done, right? Okay, that's the way it was for a while. And then you've got Craigslist, which is like an affront to everyone's design sense. But the important part is that Craigslist took this whole thing and went, because now you just hop onto Craigslist, you search for the thing you're looking for, you find it, you email somebody in like an encrypted way, so now you're a little less scared, and then you can exchange and get the thing done, right? All of these steps are different now. All of these steps are easier and focused on the same outcome, but all of the snags, all the places where things can go wrong and take extra time and cause hassle, all of those are gone, okay? And so you can think even further. Think about Airbnb, which is kind of dealing with some of Craigslist territory in one way, right? So whereas on Craigslist, you've got to kind of search through the things, you got to read the things, and then you got to contact somebody for the availability of the thing that you might want to do or whatever else. You've got to start earlier in the process and deal with talking to people, right? All right. Anyway, but with Airbnb, you hop onto the right thing, you see the location, you get all your details immediately, you see availability, and you book it, and then you're done. And you just show up, which doesn't always go well, but for the most part, it does, right? You just book the whole thing. You get all the information. You're there. Here's my money. I'm just going to show up where I am, and I'm just going to sleep in this bed. So you need to make sure it's okay, whatever. And so you start compressing, and you start peeling away the layers of interaction, which makes things much, much easier to accomplish. Instead of saying, my product must fit into this, you're instead saying, this is the outcome that must occur. How do we get people there? Okay? And you can start helping your product or your content or whatever get there by finding the snags in that process and getting rid of a lot of them, right? And so in case you think we're getting away from business goals and stuff like that, again, where we're talking about this sort of thing. So for a major e-commerce business, streamline purchase paths, which, side note, for someone to decide one day, as an e-commerce business, we're going to streamline purchase paths. Think about that. We are going to decidedly make it easy for people to buy things, which is the entire lifeblood of our business. That must have been a really ridiculous moment for somebody in the room, right? Well, you mean like we're making it harder on purpose? How did we know about this and not do this sooner? Anyway, this occurs with a lot of people. It's really scary. But anyway, for a major e-commerce business, streamlined purchase paths gave a 46.5% increase in revenue. Like the number of things ordered went up that much, okay? A focused product redesign for SAP led to a 50% reduction in the time users spent on a given task, okay? Increasing efficiency, prompting significant savings, all of this kind of stuff, right? Focusing on saying, look, things are probably harder than they should be. Let's see if we can focus on making them less hard. Seriously? Like I think I would have lost it, honestly, if this was going on where I was. I mean, that's an insane amount of things to be able to have happen just because you're like, we should make it generally easier for people to give us money. This is crazy. But anyway, this is the kind of thing that happens. And this is the kind of thing that happens for major companies. This isn't a one-off small example. This is true, and this happens for a lot of people. Let me give you an example of a little bit more of what this means to hunt snags, okay? So these are both remotes that are in my household, okay? And someone right now is rolling their eyes at me, and I'm not here doing this thing where it's like, look at the Apple thing. Isn't the Apple thing so much better than the thing that's not from Apple? That happens in almost every presentation. I'm really sorry, okay? But that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not a crazy Apple guy. Don't look at my computer. But here's the thing, right? One of these causes me to, when I want to interact with whatever it's offering me, which is some form of entertainment, right? One of these things says, I got to look down at the button to make sure I'm pushing the right button to make the thing happen on the screen that I want to have happen. And so it's kind of like look, to. And I'm breaking this interaction, right? I'm interacting with two different interfaces. I'm kind of breaking my attention from one thing to another. It's causing these bounces in between. It's causing these differences. Whereas this other one, right? So there are, in this case, there's obviously a pretty simple layout. It's easy to remember. There's a different tactile sensation on one. Like one of these kind of bubbles out, one bubbles in. You know, you've got this rounded area so that you can find these buttons more. It's easy to understand what I'm doing. And so when I use this other one, I never have to look away from what I'm doing. And so it makes it easier to continue to interact with the thing I want to interact with, right? But the thing is, I don't love the Apple thing because it's Apple. I love the Apple TV because I think about my Apple TV less, okay? Because I don't actually care about my Apple TV. I did not wake up this morning to find, like, I can't wait to turn on my Apple TV and interact with the interface that's there, okay? I want to think of my Apple TV less, okay? I want to get where I'm going without thinking about it so much. And so, like, no matter what we think about brand engagement and brand loyalty and all of this kind of stuff, like, people don't wake up to interact with a particular thing. They wake up to get the job done. I don't care about my Apple TV. I care about spending time with people and watching a movie, which is why I turned the whole thing on to begin with, right? That was the outcome I was going for. And so I like this one more because I think about the things that enable me to do it less. It's a lot less important. And so Apple pretty famously doesn't ask people what they want, so it's a really bad example. It's really dangerous to use people like Apple or even IKEA, who have both publicly said they don't really care what users think, okay? They managed to nail it. They're really bad examples for us, and they're really dangerous for us to compare ourselves to people like that. So the way that we have to find this stuff out is by talking to people like actual people. And that sounds ridiculous, and it's ridiculous that I have to say it in a speech, because we've forgotten how to do that. Okay? It's insane. The point is, though, you know, like recently I saw an article breaking down 20 types of user research into 3 categories and then providing a matrix to help me understand which one I should, you know, employ given what I'm trying to accomplish at a different point. These are all very good. Research is very important. We do a lot of research. All of it is crucial, okay? But the other thing that's super crucial that we keep forgetting is actually getting the nuance of regular conversation with people. Okay? When you're in person, you get body language. I see you nodding. See, I think you might like this because I see you nodding. Whereas if you were writing me an email, I don't know. I got to infer from tone, right? And even doing things remotely, like we miss out on a lot of this. And when we have too many structured questions, we don't understand all of what's happening. We want to know, what's the tone? What's the inflection? Where does someone's eyes go when you ask them to think about a question? What happens when they're allowed to curse because they're outside a research room? What happens when you get people in normal conversation? Because like deep in the bowels of those normal conversations is where you actually start understanding like what it is that people want to do, okay? And what it is that matters, okay? And so for instance, if you were having a normal conversation with somebody about why they were hanging a picture on the wall, you might find out that that picture is of their daughter, and that's why the picture is super important. And then you could say, why? What's the picture of? What's she doing? Why do you want it hanging in that part of your house? Why does this picture matter to you? Where is it from? What's the frame like? Where did you get the frame? What matters? What's in there? What's in that outcome that matters so much to you, and why do we need to help you get there? That stuff is really important, and you cannot get there unless you deconstruct all the structure of doing research on people and instead talk to people like people, because no matter what you're doing and no matter how big your company is, people are on the other end of your product, okay? Concepts that are based in humanity always scale because they were always humans at the other end of it. And so if you've forgotten humanity, you're going to hit a hitch somewhere in there. You might get lucky, you might not. And so the founder of Wasabi, okay, which is a competitor to Mint accounting software, okay, Wasabi doesn't exist anymore, so this will be fun. So the founder of Wasabi, when he was talking about how they don't exist anymore, said, I was focused on trying to make the usability of editing data as easy and functional as possible. Mint was focused on making it so that you never had to do that at all. Okay? And when you talk to people, you start understanding what it means to actually get on the other side of the outcome that they want to get to. And then you say, okay, I'm going to forget about my product for now, and let's go to the outcome. And let's figure out, like, how do we get you there? How do we understand this better? Instead of just asking you directly, what do you think we should do? And all this kind of stuff. You learn things by talking to people like people, okay? Talking to people like people is important. And I'm going to run through some stuff pretty quickly here because I'm blabbing my mouth for too long. But this is an important thing for us to understand. You have to talk to people like people to understand what it means to be on the other side of a perceived 9 times improvement to anything, okay? People will not accept things as an improvement unless they perceive it to be 9 times better. Here's the problem. You're the only person who is not a user of your product in this situation. So your opinion of 9 times better doesn't matter. Consumers are usually very skeptical about changes, about improvements, who moved my cheese, all of this kind of stuff, right? And we're often convinced that it's the right solution, that it's very good. Okay? A failure to understand this and to figure out what this means is what leads to the sinking feeling, especially if you do like online software type stuff. You work for months and months and months and months to make things better, and you finally release it, and people are like, this sucks! This is the worst thing you could have ever done to our product. What did you do? Like, what? I made an improvement for you, you jerk. And like, it creates this weird contention because you spent all your time making things better only to find out it's not perceived to be better at all. And in fact, because it doesn't meet the threshold that people hold, they don't want it at all. You're making it worse for me. Go away. Take it away. Don't enable it, right? And the problem is we don't know this unless we get into less conventional conversation and figure out what this kind of thing means, right? There's that button again. That's the wrong thing. And so the way that we measure the success in this then, if our concept is to get to the end and reverse engineer it and to make people feel awesome and figure out how to make them awesome, then the way that we actually measure the success of user experience is by measuring what happens after the entire experience is complete, okay? Once you're done using my product, are you a better person? Are you a better coach? Are you a better teacher? Are you a better employee? Boss, brother, sister, mother, whatever. Did it actually enable you to get better at the things that you want to get better at in life? Not, did it irritate you a minimal amount and are you willing to pay for it again? Okay? And the thing that we're afraid of is that at 5:01 p.m., they're going to look back and instead of saying, not bad, self, today was pretty good. That's actually the thing you're looking for. But what we're afraid of is that they're not going to look back and say, not bad, sponsored by Salesforce. We always want to be a part of that situation, and we always want to imagine that this matters that much, but it doesn't, okay? Focusing on the experience after the experience matters, okay? And there are all kinds of statistics that can help you understand that executives actually care about what happens after the experience, right? Do the numbers go up or down? Do these things matter to me, okay? Correct user experience, designing it well, helping people enable themselves actually produces the things that executives want to see, okay? Revenues go up, business goes up, churn goes down, all of these kinds of things. We could talk about it for days. The important thing is this always maps to the improvements that people want, and it always maps to efficiency in the development process because it helps you understand that you're doing the right thing for the right people at the right time. And so one further thing, and one thing that I will leave you with, because all of this is great, all of this is neat, it's excellent that we can focus on people and we can meet UX goals and we can come out the other side of them and we can meet business goals and people are happy. But I'm going to give you a tidbit that you should take with you, that you should make matter to you, okay? Because if you don't nail a good user experience, you don't just risk agitated customers. You don't just risk not meeting your business goals and things like that. You're actually taking limited cognitive resources from other people. Studies have shown that willpower and cognitive processing draw from the same pool of resources. A bad user experience causes you to have to deal with cognitive processing because think about it. Every time you interact with a piece of software and you have to remember where to go because it's not intuitive, process. Every time you have to remember that little bug that's happening that you have to get over, process, memory. Every time you have to open one thing up and do it in another and move it from one program to another and deal with it, processing. Here's the thing. When you take processing pool from people, when you take processing resources from people, you deplete them of the resources they need to execute on willpower, okay? If you want to read some more about this, read an article called "Your App Makes Me Fat," okay? This has to do with the concept that when you take those resources, you deplete people of what they need to accomplish things tied to willpower. It's harder to quit smoking when it is too difficult to accomplish what you need to accomplish at work each day. And the thing is, people actually want to be better people, right? And I promised I would make a joke about this. Kathy Sierra, who I talked about earlier, said no one ever lays on their deathbed wishing they had engaged with more brands. But what they do lay on their deathbed and say, I wish I had been there more. I wish I had been a better person. I wish I had done things better. I wish that I had gotten rid of this demon, so to speak, that lives in me, that I had gotten through the things that are important to me. And when we don't do things well, we deplete people of what they need to actually improve on those things that they need to improve on to be the better people that they want to be. Conversely, if you work on this and you put resources back in the pool by figuring out what it means to start at the end and reverse engineer, you give people resources back to be better people. You actually make better people on the other end of it. Things that actually matter at the end of the day, whether we all had jobs or not, okay? And with bad design, we take those away. With good design and good considerations, we give those things back, okay? Again, everything that's founded in humanity scales because there's always humans, okay? That works anywhere. So when you keep that foundation, you can grow no matter how fast you grow. And on top of it, you can go to work knowing that advocating for people means that you're actually making better people and you're helping your business grow, okay? That's why things are meaningful. That's why things are excellent. That's why this is a cool thing to focus on. That's why I love my job and why you should too, okay? Thank you.